one thing that I do a lot of is I speak on resilience. I speak on dealing with and handling trauma and how that impacts. I am just finishing my seventh book. I just wrote a book called The Perfect Sale. And The Perfect Sale is talking about how to end trafficking. So I have a retail clothing line that I've been doing that for about 15 plus years. Recently, I came into the nonprofit sector and we formed a business called BLAST. So BLAST stands for Black Leaders Against Sex Trafficking. So for me, that is a completely new area of focus when we're coming into the anti-trafficking space. But what I end up finding within the anti-trafficking space is that a lot of the organizations operate in silo. There's a lot of fragmentation. Then you'll see this as not just in the anti-trafficking space, you'll see this almost in every sector. You'll see this even from the academic standpoint, there is not a lot of connecting this degree to this degree. There's a lot of fragmentations in so many areas of how we just move around in our life. So I started building out a framework, and then this framework, we really looked at how does transformation really happen, not just within organizations, like within your daily life. And one thing that we end up finding out was that trauma affects most of this. Everyone is dealing with some sort of trauma. When you go into an organization, there's going to be three essential types of trauma that are coming in. You're going to have historical trauma, you're going to have systematic trauma, and then you're going to have that individual trauma. We'll talk about resilience. So we'll say you got to be resilient, you got to be resilient. But understanding that resilience for every person is going to be different. And resilience, I think, is a lot of times people look at resilience from a surface level. Resilience, you have to look at what people's trauma that they're actually, dealing with. As a leader, if you don't look and understand their trauma, you're never going to be able to help them during this process. And what we have in the industry right now, we have every year, there is a transformation that people are going through. Right now, I think it was 5.9 million people leave a job and transfer to another job. And this is happening yearly. Almost 2 trillion is spent on digital transformation. 70% of those results has failed. 34% of major transformations achieve their goals. Only 34%. 85% of execs report explosive increases in change projects. 71% of employees feel overwhelmed by the amount of work. 2/3 of workers experience burnout during transformation. As a leader, we carry so many hats. We carry so many, daily tasks. And I remember a leader saying, I don't have the time to deal with what this person is dealing with, their trauma, and it's not, and then unfortunately, it does fall on the leader to try to find balance. Because if you don't deal with what some of these people's trauma that they're bringing into the workplace, they're going to be included in that 5.9 million that's going to transfer out. And I think the one thing a lot of times we forget is that leaders, we have trauma as well that we're dealing with. And we have the individual trauma, and then we have our job trauma that's like we're overloaded. It's not enough people, doing different tasks. Trauma and healing are two variables that, is very important. One of my books I wrote is called I'm Tired of Being Stuck. And within Tired of Being Stuck, there were 5 words that we made out of stuck. And I'm gonna go over those words. The first one for the S, self-awareness. You can't fix what you can't look at. So we gotta have that self-awareness of what's really going on and where the pattern is coming from. And then we go, T is triggers. Every pattern has something that sets you off. You got to know what your triggers, are, whether it's from an addiction or anger management, understanding what these triggers are. Once that happens, you got to go through a thing where it's unlearned. To move forward, you have to let go of what's holding you back. Next of that, we have commit. Being clear doesn't create change. Commitment does. And then the last one of that stuck is kickstart. Motivation fades. Discipline and momentum builds. So having discipline starts to build that momentum. So we go and start talking about that. So what we end up finding out is when we're dealing with trauma as leaders, we have to be able to understand how can we manage our trauma to make sure that we can get lasting change. Let's talk about this part that when I talked about there's 3 levels of trauma. All right, so the first level is historical trauma. Historical trauma, previous failed initiatives. This is someone's dealing in an organization, layoffs and restructuring, broken promises from leadership, industrial disruptions. Then we have systematic trauma, exclusion from decision making, lack of psychological safety, unclear communications, conflicting priorities. And then you got the individual trauma, the personal fatigue, work-life out of balance, financial insecurity, and of course, imposter syndrome. Each layer creates resistance. Combined, they create organizational paralysis. I do want to say one side thing. AI is one of the biggest disruptors that we are dealing with right now. I build, technology. So one of my partners is called irex.ai. Irex.ai is the technology where a kid gets taken. Our technology will go into any city camera, and then it will search only that kid or that perpetrator and help intervene. So it starts to connect the dots. We just did a large contract in Peru, and we're saving a lot. We just found out that Peru itself, over 20,000 American kids are in Peru. But with AI, what we're dealing with AI is AI's core is to analyze, interpret, and with enough data, it can predict outcomes. It can help you do your predicting outcomes. And I tell people all the time, I say, just because you're using AI doesn't mean you're innovating. What AI does for a lot of people, and they're like, we're innovating. No, you're just automating. You're just automating, your services. So that there's a big difference with AI. I think I don't want to go over on that, but any questions, conversations during that.